Southern China was battered this weekend by Typhoon Matmo, a powerful tropical cyclone that made landfall on October 5, 2025, disrupting millions of lives during the country's peak National Day and mid-autumn holiday travel season. With sustained winds reaching 151 kilometers per hour, 94 miles per hour, Matmo carved a destructive path across Guangdong and Hainan provinces, triggering mass evacuations, transportation shutdowns, and emergency mobilizations on an unprecedented scale. The timing could not have been worse. China's 8-day holiday period, beginning October 1st, typically sees over 2 billion domestic trips. But this year, celebrations turned into crisis management as Matmo barreled toward the southern coast. The typhoon made landfall near Xuwen in Guangdong province around 2:50 p.m. local time, unleashing torrential rains and coastal surges that overwhelmed drainage systems and flooded low-lying areas. In anticipation, authorities issued a red alert, the highest level in China's 4-tier warning system, and ordered the evacuation of nearly 350,000 residents from vulnerable zones. Hainan province alone relocated 197,856 people, while Guangdong evacuated 151,000, many from fishing villages and flood-prone urban districts. Matmo's arrival tested the resilience of southern China's infrastructure. Flights and ferries were suspended across Hainan, stranding thousands of holiday travelers. Public transport systems were shut down, and businesses shuttered as emergency crews raced to reinforce flood barriers and secure power lines. In Zhanjiang, Guangdong, seawater surged over coastal roads, inundating homes and marketplaces. Local media broadcast dramatic footage of waves crashing into seaside villages, while emergency teams deployed sandbags and mobile pumps to stem the rising tide. The storm's rainfall totals were staggering, between 100 and 249 millimeters, 3.9 to 9.8 inches, fell in parts of Guangdong and Hainan, overwhelming urban drainage systems and triggering flash floods. In Haikou, Hainan's capital, streets turned into rivers, and residents waded through waist-deep water to reach shelters. China's National Meteorological Center, NMC, had tracked Matmo's intensification for days, issuing early warnings and coordinating with provincial governments. Over 10,000 emergency personnel were deployed across Guangdong, including firefighters, medical teams, and military units trained in disaster response. Meng Fanli, Deputy Party Secretary of Guangdong, urged local officials to swiftly go into battle mode and ensure no casualties and minimal losses. His directive underscored the government's determination to protect lives during a holiday season that typically sees mass movement and heightened risk. In Macau, although not directly in Matmo's path, schools and tutoring centers were closed as a precaution. The ripple effects of the storm extended far beyond its immediate impact zone, disrupting regional logistics and economic activity. Matmo's fury was not confined to China. Earlier in the week, the storm swept across the northern Philippines, where it was known locally as Tropical Storm Paolo. It triggered landslides and floods in agricultural valleys and mountainous provinces, affecting over 220,000 people. Nearly 35,000 residents were forced into emergency shelters or relocated to safer areas. In Tuguegarao City, Cagayan Province, a dam released water due to heavy rainfall, flooding nearby communities. Aerial images showed submerged homes and swollen rivers, a grim preview of what southern China would face days later. The economic toll of Matmo is still being assessed, but early estimates suggest significant losses in tourism, agriculture, and transportation. Hainan, a popular holiday destination, saw widespread cancellations of hotel bookings and tour packages. Local businesses reported damage to inventory and infrastructure, while farmers in Guangdong feared crop losses due to waterlogging and wind damage. Socially, the storm disrupted family reunions and cultural festivities. Many evacuees spent the Mid-Autumn Festival in shelters, sharing mooncakes and stories under emergency lighting. Volunteers organized games for children and distributed supplies, turning crisis into community resilience. Matmo's impact has reignited discussions about China's disaster preparedness and urban planning. While the swift evacuation and mobilization efforts were praised, experts noted vulnerabilities in drainage systems, coastal defenses, and emergency shelter capacity. Urban planners are calling for accelerated investment in climate-resilient infrastructure, including permeable pavements, green roofs, and expanded floodplain zoning. The storm also highlighted the need for real-time data sharing between meteorological agencies and local governments, especially during high travel periods. Policy analysts suggest that China's Sponge City initiative, designed to absorb and reuse rainwater, should be expanded to more regions, particularly in typhoon-prone provinces. The initiative, launched in 2015, has shown promise but remains unevenly implemented. As Matmo moves northwest toward Vietnam and China's Yunnan province, recovery efforts are underway in the south. Power restoration teams are working around the clock, and damage assessments are being conducted in affected areas. The Ministry of Emergency Management has pledged financial support for rebuilding homes and infrastructure. For many, the storm was a reminder of nature's unpredictability and the importance of preparedness. In the words of a Haikou resident who helped neighbors evacuate, "We celebrate the moon together, even in the dark. That's what makes us strong." Meanwhile, in Shapa Bay, a quiet fishing enclave on the southern coast of China's Guangdong province, was transformed into a scene of chaos and resilience this weekend as a powerful storm surge driven by Typhoon Matmo overwhelmed coastal defenses, flooded homes, and forced emergency evacuations. The surge, which peaked at over 2.5 meters above normal tide levels, marked one of the most severe marine disasters in the region's recent history. The storm surge struck Shapa Bay on the afternoon of October 5, 2025, as Typhoon Matmo made landfall near Xuwen County, just 80 kilometers southwest of the bay. While the eye of the storm passed inland, its trailing winds and low-pressure system pushed seawater into the narrow inlet of Shapa Bay, amplifying wave heights and triggering a rapid rise in sea level. Local tide gauges recorded a surge of 2.52 meters at peak, inundating coastal roads, fish farms, and residential areas. The water breached seawalls in multiple locations, including the aging concrete barrier near Shapa Fishing Port, which had long been flagged for reinforcement but remained structurally vulnerable. Residents described the moment as surreal. "The sea just kept coming," said Lu Wan, a 62-year-old fisherman whose home was flooded within minutes. "We've seen typhoons before, but never like this. The water rose faster than we could run." The surge exposed critical weaknesses in Shapa Bay's coastal infrastructure. The primary seawall, built in the early 2000s, was designed to withstand surges of up to 1.8 meters, well below Matmo's impact. Emergency crews scrambled to reinforce breached sections with sandbags and temporary barriers, but the water had already penetrated inland. Power outages swept through the Bay Area as saltwater inundated electrical substations. Telecommunications were disrupted, and several roads became impassable due to debris and standing water. The local desalination plant, which supplies drinking water to over 20,000 residents, was temporarily shut down after its intake system was contaminated by seawater. Fishing vessels moored in the harbor were tossed against docks or dragged inland by the surge. At least 37 boats were damaged or sunk, according to preliminary reports from the Maritime Safety Administration. Authorities evacuated over 12,000 residents from Shapa Bay and surrounding villages, relocating them to emergency shelters in Zhanjiang and Haikou. The evacuation was coordinated by the Guangdong Provincial Emergency Management Department, which deployed over 800 personnel, including firefighters, medics, and military engineers. Shelters were set up in schools and community centers, equipped with food, water, and medical supplies. Volunteers organized activities for children and helped elderly residents navigate the unfamiliar surroundings. Despite the disruption, many evacuees expressed gratitude for the swift response. "We lost our home, but we're safe," said Zhang Mei, a mother of two who was evacuated from Shapa village. "The volunteers gave my children mooncakes and sang songs with them. It helped us forget the fear, even for a moment." The storm surge wreaked havoc on Shapa Bay's marine ecosystem and economy. Fish farms along the coast suffered massive losses as seawater overflowed containment ponds, releasing stock into the open sea. Shrimp and grouper farms reported damage to infrastructure and contamination of breeding pools. Mangrove forests, which serve as natural buffers against storm surges, were partially uprooted or submerged. Environmental experts warned that the loss of these ecosystems could increase vulnerability to future events and disrupt local biodiversity. Economically, the damage is expected to exceed 300 million yuan, $41 million, with losses spanning fisheries, tourism, and public infrastructure. The local government has pledged emergency funds and technical support for rebuilding, but recovery is expected to take months. Typhoon Matmo's storm surge was amplified by a combination of factors: high tide alignment, shallow coastal topography, and the bay's funnel-like shape. Meteorologists from the China Meteorological Administration, CMA, noted that Shapa Bay's geography makes it particularly susceptible to surge amplification, especially when typhoons approach from the southeast. The CMA had issued a Level 1 marine disaster warning 24 hours prior to landfall, but the surge exceeded forecasts. Experts are now calling for improved modeling techniques and real-time data integration to better predict surge behavior in complex coastal environments. Dr. Huang Yisin, a coastal engineer at Sun Yat-sen University, emphasized the need for adaptive infrastructure. "We must design for extremes, not averages," she said. "Climate change is shifting the baseline. What was once a 100-year event may now occur every decade." The disaster has reignited debate over coastal resilience and governance. Critics argue that Shapa Bay's defenses were outdated and underfunded, despite repeated warnings from scientists and local officials. A 2022 audit had identified structural weaknesses in the seawall and recommended upgrades, but budget constraints delayed implementation. In response, Guangdong's provincial government announced a fast-tracked review of all coastal defense systems, with priority given to high-risk zones like Shapa Bay. The Ministry of Natural Resources also pledged to expand its Blue Shield initiative, which integrates ecological restoration with engineered defenses. Policy analysts suggest that China's broader Sponge City strategy, focused on urban flood resilience, should be adapted for coastal zones. This includes permeable surfaces, mangrove restoration, and modular seawall designs that can be scaled based on risk. Meanwhile, local media aired footage showing large waves washing seawater onto roads and villages by the coast in Guangdong's Zhanjiang. In Guangdong, officials closed expressways in the city of Zhanjiang and suspended some ferry services to Hong Kong, a Chinese territory east of Guangdong. In Hainan, the government has suspended classes and some transportation. About 60 flights to and from the international airport serving the island had been cancelled as of early Sunday afternoon, according to the flight tracking site FlightAware. In Guangxi, the authorities closed some tourist sites and evacuated tens of thousands of visitors. The storm could also bring heavy rain, strong winds, and potential flooding to parts of northern Vietnam late Sunday, the country's meteorological service said. Matmo is the second major storm to threaten the area in nearly 2 weeks. At least 18 people were killed and dozens of others injured when Typhoon Ragasa blew through the Philippines, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and mainland China in late September. The authorities in Guangdong province evacuated more than 1 million people. Typhoon Matmo, the 11th storm of the year, has reached its strongest phase with sustained winds of 149 kilometers per hour, level 13, and gusts up to level 16. Moving at 25 kilometers per hour, the storm is expected to enter the Gulf of Tonkin this evening, October 5th, and make landfall in Quang Ninh early tomorrow morning, bringing winds of level 9 to 10 and gusts up to level 13. At noon today, Mai Van Kim, director of the National Center for Hydrometeorological Forecasting, provided the latest updates on Typhoon Matmo's path and impacts. As of 11 a.m., the storm was located east of China's Lizhou Peninsula, about 300 kilometers southeast of Mong Kai, Quang Ninh. Near the storm center, winds reached levels 12 to 13, 118 to 149 kilometers per hour, with gusts up to level 16. Kim stated that the typhoon is at its most intense stage and predicted it would cross Lizhou Peninsula later today before entering northern parts of the Gulf of Tonkin at level 12, gusting to level 15. After moving into the Gulf, the storm will track along the northern coastline and likely make landfall between Quang Ninh, Vietnam, and Guangxi, China, late tonight or early tomorrow morning, he said. The strongest winds are expected in northeastern Quang Ninh, reaching level 9 to 10 with gusts up to level 13. From 7 p.m. tonight, the typhoon will begin affecting northeastern provinces. A level 3 natural disaster risk warning has been issued for the northern Gulf of Tonkin, coastal areas from Quang Ninh to Hung Yen, and Lang Son. By 10 a.m. tomorrow, the storm will move into the Vietnam-China border region, weaken to a tropical depression with winds of level 6 to 7, gusting to level 9, and continue weakening over the northern mountains.
Trong mẹ gắn mặc kia đôi khi với tôi giờ lọ đó tôi giờ trong mạng cái đôi khi cái đôi rồi giá tôi giờ tuổi chứ tôi giờ tôi phải tiếp tục đi sau à
水下的。Biasa kami siang mungkin ada dua na suatu, kita ada suya, suara